In the sweltering heat of June 1920, Waukegan, a bustling port city on the shores of Lake Michigan, was a study in contrasts. The clamor of seagulls, the distant hum of ship engines, and the lively banter of street vendors filled the air along Harbor Street. Yet beneath this lively exterior, deep-rooted divisions simmered. At 45 Harbor Street stood the Sherman House, a modest hotel reserved exclusively for African Americans. Its whitewashed walls and narrow corridors whispered stories of hope and resilience. Inside, Mrs. Evelyn Carter, the kindly proprietor, often reassured weary travelers. "Here, you're safe. We may have little, but we have dignity." Outside, the city's power structure betrayed a darker undercurrent. Police Chief Edward Crandall, whose stern gaze belied his secret allegiance to the Ku Klux Klan, patrolled the streets with an air of self-importance. In hushed tones at his office in City Hall on 112 Main Street, he would remark to his trusted aide, "Keep order by any means necessary, even if it means using our unconventional methods." Beside him, State's Attorney George McIntyre shared a similar sentiment, his voice low and deliberate. These men were determined to preserve a racial hierarchy that had long defined Waukegan. Amid these tensions walked Leonard Jackson, a 14-year-old with bright eyes and a quiet determination. As he strolled from the modest East Side homes to the busier blocks near the harbor, Leonard's inner voice murmured, "One day, I'll be more than just a shadow on these streets." His silent hope stood in stark contrast to the raucous conversations among off-duty sailors at local taverns like the Sailor's Rest, where Samuel Turner, a gruff but conflicted sailor, joked with his comrades, "Ain't nothing worth fighting for if you don't know who your enemy is." The stage was set, a city where the light of hope battled against the encroaching darkness of prejudice. On a blistering afternoon in early June 1920, Waukegan's streets buzzed with the everyday sounds of life, the clink of coins at market stalls, the murmur of fishermen repairing nets near the docks, and laughter drifting from the Sailor's Rest. Yet a dangerous incident was about to shatter this routine. At the corner of Harbor and Monroe Streets, Leonard Jackson found himself unexpectedly thrust into the center of a swirling rumor. Just moments earlier, he had been near the car of Samuel Turner, a well-maintained vehicle parked outside the Turner residence on Lakeshore Avenue. Soon, hushed voices claimed Leonard had struck the car. In the dim back rooms of the Monticello Club, an agitated sailor whispered, "I heard the boy hit the car." And worse, they say Margaret Turner got hurt in the fray. Though Margaret Turner's injury was nothing more than a rumor, one that would later be debunked, the tale spread like wildfire. At the Waukegan train depot, weary travelers exchanged astonished remarks, and Leonard could feel the weight of every suspicious gaze. His heart pounded as he thought, "Why am I being blamed for something I didn't do?" That very afternoon, the rumor reached the ears of Police Chief Crandall and State's Attorney McIntyre. In a hurried meeting at City Hall, their voices were cold and calculated. "This incident is our chance to send a message," Crandall declared. "We must act decisively." McIntyre agreed. By sunset, the seed of accusation had taken root. Leonard's name, along with the false tale of Margaret Turner's injury, became the spark that would soon ignite the volatile tinder of Waukegan's racial tensions. As the sun began to dip over Waukegan, painting the sky in bruised hues of orange and purple, an ominous energy gathered outside the Sherman House. The once peaceful refuge at 45 Harbor Street now braced itself for what was to come. A throng of off-duty sailors, riled by the false claims about Margaret Turner, assembled on the steps. Corporal William Harris, known for his explosive temper, bellowed to his comrades, "No more waiting. Let's show them we mean business." His voice, gruff and resolute, echoed off the brick walls as the group surged forward. Inside the hotel, the atmosphere was one of cautious solace. Guests huddled in the common room. Mrs. Carter tried to reassure them in a trembling voice. "Stay calm, everyone. We will get through this." Leonard Jackson sat in a corner, his eyes wide with fear and confusion as he clutched a small, worn photograph of his family. The sound of heavy boots pounding the wooden steps sent shivers down his spine. Suddenly, the door burst open. Shattered glass scattered like fallen stars, and the shouts of the mob mingled with desperate cries from within. The peaceful corridors, once filled with quiet conversations and soft laughter, were transformed into a battlefield. A cacophony of anger, fear, and the sickening crunch of splintered wood. Outside, the sailors' chants grew louder and more venomous. Each call, laden with hate, resonated deep into the night, marking the beginning of a devastating assault on the sanctuary that had once provided hope. As violence raged at the Sherman House, the true depth of Waukegan's institutional racism emerged. In a dimly lit conference room at City Hall on 112 Main Street, Police Chief Crandall and State's Attorney McIntyre conspired over a polished oak table. Their voices, measured yet laced with malice, were nearly inaudible beneath the drone of the city outside. Crandall leaned forward and murmured, "Let the chaos unfold. We'll tighten our grip once the dust settles." McIntyre's eyes narrowed as he replied, "This is not about justice. It's about control." Meanwhile, officers at the Waukegan police station on 98 Washington Street received orders delivered in clipped, emotionless tones. They were instructed to maintain the racial order at all costs. As the mob's violence surged outside, some officers hesitated, caught between duty and deeply ingrained prejudice. Rumors spread in hushed whispers among them. "They're letting it happen for a reason." In local taverns like the Sailor's Rest and the back rooms of the Monticello Club, the narrative was swiftly shaped. The Waukegan Daily Gazette printed headlines that portrayed the African American community as instigators, reinforcing the biases already simmering beneath the surface. In these smoky gatherings, heated discussions blared like background noise, setting the stage for further discord. Every misdirected order and every moment of inaction by the authorities was a reminder that prejudice was woven into the fabric of power in Waukegan, a fact that stoked the flames of injustice and despair. As night fell over Waukegan, the chaos at the Sherman House transformed into a full-scale riot. The fading light cast long, eerie shadows over the battered hotel at 45 Harbor Street, now a stark symbol of violence and hate. Off-duty sailors, led by Corporal Harris's fervent cries, "Show no mercy," pushed deeper into the building. Their aggression was met by a regiment of Marines from the nearby naval base, commanded by Lieutenant Richard Evans, whose crisp orders cut through the murmur of the mob. "Hold your ground. Move in formation." Inside, panic reigned. Leonard Jackson, huddled behind a shattered reception desk, could barely breathe as the chaos swirled around him. His inner voice pleaded, "Please, let someone help us." Guests scrambled for safety amid the deafening sound of clashing bodies and the relentless crash of splintered wood. On Harbor Street, sirens wailed at precisely 10:15 p.m., piercing the tumultuous night. Officers from the Waukegan police station rushed in, their arrival marked by the acrid scent of smoke and the sharp tang of fear. Yet, instead of quelling the riot, the police, acting on the biased commands of Chief Crandall, opened fire. In the disarray, stray bullets found their mark. A 17-year-old waitress, Mary Louise Jenkins, known for her gentle smile, was struck. And Jeremiah Moore, a hard-working laborer with dreams of a just Waukegan, fell victim to the chaos. The night erupted in a symphony of shouts, gunfire, and anguished cries, a grim, unforgettable portrait of a city torn asunder by hate and the abuse of power. Dawn crept over Waukegan, revealing a city forever changed. The once proud Sherman House now lay in ruins at 45 Harbor Street, its shattered facade and scattered debris a mute testimony to the previous night's horrors. The cool morning air was punctuated by the distant wail of sirens and the soft murmur of grief. At Waukegan Memorial Hospital on 120 Lakeshore Avenue, doctors and nurses rushed to care for the wounded. In hushed tones, a nurse murmured to a colleague, "We must do everything we can for Mary Louise and Jeremiah." Mary Louise, a delicate soul whose life had been forever marred by a stray bullet, lay quietly while Jeremiah, though gravely injured, clutched onto the hope of recovery. Back at the ruined lobby of the Sherman House, survivors gathered in tight clusters. Mrs. Carter, wiping away tears, tried to offer comfort with a shaky smile. "We'll remember them, and we will rise again." Leonard Jackson sat silently in a darkened corner, his wide, frightened eyes reflecting the collective sorrow of a community betrayed by those meant to protect them. Across town, the Waukegan Daily Gazette splashed stark headlines across its pages, headlines that did little to capture the depth of loss. At St. Mary's Church on 34 Elm Street, community leaders and pastors organized an impromptu vigil. The soft glow of countless candles and the sound of murmured prayers filled the sanctuary, as Reverend Elijah Washington intoned with quiet strength, "In our grief, we find the courage to demand justice." Even as officials like Chief Crandall and State's Attorney McIntyre retreated into the silent corridors of City Hall, rumors of cover-ups and deliberate neglect whispered through every alley and home in Waukegan. The shattered trust felt by the community was as raw and real as the physical wounds that marred the night. In quiet living rooms and on weathered stoops along the east side, families exchanged solemn words of protest and resolve, their voices a low but determined chorus against the injustice they had witnessed. In the weeks following the riot, as Waukegan slowly began to mend its wounds, a fragile new hope emerged from the ashes of despair. At St. Mary's Church on 34 Elm Street, Reverend Elijah Washington organized regular vigils. Under the soft glow of candles, community members, still bearing the emotional scars of loss, gathered together. One evening, as tears mingled with quiet prayers, he spoke with a determined calm. "We will not let hate define us. We will build a future on justice and unity." Across town, at the Waukegan Civic Hall on 210 Harbor Street, a diverse group of activists and community leaders met in earnest discussion, including Sylvia Grant, known for her fierce commitment to civil rights. A slowly recovering Jeremiah Moore stood before a crowd, urging, "We demand a full investigation. Our city's future depends on holding those in power accountable." Even young Leonard Jackson found his voice amid the collective call for change. In a small gathering on a warm East Side evening, he confessed quietly, "I never asked for any of this, but maybe my story can help us change things for the better." Local newspapers like the Waukegan Daily Gazette began to shift their tone. Editorials called for transparency and reform, challenging long-held narratives and urging city officials to confront their failings. In the hushed ambiance of cafes along Harbor Street and the intimate corners of the Monticello Club, passionate conversations erupted, voices rising in a determined chorus that vowed, "This violence will not be our legacy." From the rubble of that fateful night, a glimmer of change shone through. The painful memories served as a catalyst for a movement dedicated to rebuilding Waukegan on a foundation of equality and justice. In every whispered conversation and every resolute step toward reform, the community rediscovered its strength, a strength that promised, even in the darkest hours, unity and hope could light the way forward.